And welcome back to the Rugby Connection pod. My name is Jemma, the prop life.
And I'm Anja, the chatty prop.
Woo. And we are joined with our first ever external guest today, the lovely Morgan.
Yes, round of applause.
Morgan, I mean, I could introduce you, but I think it'd be great if you could introduce yourself, really. Give our viewers a little taste of who is Morgan and why are you here and how do you know us? And welcome to the pod as well.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I mean, and just to say that I used to play a prop as well. So I'm not all for saying, changing this name to two props in one pod plus another prop, because I don't think that would work as a front row in that regard.
Three props.
Yes, exactly.
One pod, we'll call it for a singular episode.
That's the episode name sorted. Great.
Brilliant. And so, basically, I played ruggers for the best part of, it would have been about 12 years-ish, thereabouts. So played through school, sixth form, played at independent clubs, and then went to university. I went to basketball university, and I played 2 games for them and realised that they weren't quite a serious a serious team sort of thing.
Yeah.
And I'd come from like 2 clubs that done some really, really good results.
Yeah.
So I then went down to a local club in Bath called Stoddard and Pitt and played with them for 3 seasons. And then after that, I basically, because I had come up against some of the biggest opponents that the West Country has to offer, or at least for you two, it would be the north of the West Country practically.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
And and so I then thought, well, I then got to reassess and evaluate what I want to do with regard to the game. So I then stopped playing, but I then transitioned into commentary. So I then was at the University of Birmingham, where I did my first master's. And basically, I then joined the radio society there, Burn FM, which is a fabulous society anyway. And it's been going for about 50, 60 years or something like that. It's a long established institution there at the university. And I basically joined the sports team, in which they then said, who wants to do what? And they basically quickly realized that the only thing that I would do commentary on would be rugby. And they would be like, okay, nice. We're going to write you down just for that. They already knew that what I was going to do anyway. Got to do some great stuff with them. I also had my own radio show there as well, which was pretty cool, which was just imaginatively called the Bron Rugby Show. And then after that, I then dibbed and dabbed into a few other opportunities. Probably the 2 best things that I've done in terms of commentary stuff. One was that I was the stadium announcer for when Bath hosted Leinster, who were the current champions. And Jonathan Sexton had been named Player of the Year that year. And I was able to, get the crowd going and that kind of thing, which was awesome.
That really sticks me. Sorry, Jonathan Sexton. I was like,
I've never so polite. That's so polite. Jonathan Sexton. He shall only be referred to as that one.
Forever.
Well, rather than Joe Sexdog, that Squidditch Rugby will then call him, or like the 50-odd names that he's managed to somehow invent for Jonathan Sexton. Joe Sexdog or whatever. It's just like Squidditch.
I feel like Jonathan Sexton is what his mum calls him when he's in trouble.
Jonathan Sexton, will you come down here?
literally. Yeah. Even with that, you cannot take that seriously, unfortunately, because of the surname. But still, Squidditch Rugby has made him almost having an anonymity figure like the snake from Top Gear or something. But anyway, so that was one opportunity. And another opportunity was that I commentated my very first international last year.
Oh, amazing.
Which game was that?
Argentina against Wales, in the first draw that the 2 countries had ever had. And I actually, so sometimes, you know, in the rugby community, you meet people like what we did. And, you know, this is coming on to how the three of us have got to know each other, was because we met at the Autumn Nation Series event. There are very few moments in which you get starstruck by people in Rugby Stars in particular. And like, you know, meeting Sam Warburton at the Autumn Nation Series event was like that for me.
I'm still in love.
I know.
Guys, I cycled next to him once at a charity cycle, and it was the best 5 minutes of my life. Greatest guy.
Did you keep up with him?
Oh, I mean, I was like,
oh, apparently for 5 minutes you did. So
I mean, yeah, I was 18. He came onto the bike next to me. I mean, I was about 32 hours into a charity cycle at this point. I was in quite a bit of pain, like even sitting down on the bike hurt at this point. And I was like, Sam, all the times to meet you, this wouldn't be the one I would have picked, but we'll go with it. And I think there's a video. For the podcast, I will try and find the video that's on YouTube somewhere.
Murray digging through the Googleverse.
Yeah, London. I think it's London Sevens, HSBC Sevens, in like 2018. Get on it, everyone.
Nice.
I love that. So obviously, yes, as you were saying, Morgan, we met you at the Autumn Nation Series launch, which was spectacular. It's been a hell of an Autumn Nation Series. What has been your ANS highlight so far?
Well, Anja, you got a question?
I just got a really good answer.
Anja, it's your podcast. You don't need to.
Sorry, Morgan, carry on. Sorry.
Well, well, so just to link it back ever so slightly to the story about Wales, Argentina.
Yeah, sorry.
In terms of like being starstruck by people in the rugby community, one person that I was incredibly lucky to meet on that occasion was the late great commentator Eddie Butler. And I think that one of the moments for me actually was when the WRU decided to then, you know, put a shirt with all of its teams, ranging from the Barbarians, Pontypool, Cambridge University, and the Dragons, I think, or something like that. Anyway, I really loved that. You know, they then just had a microphone there just to then symbolize that he was there in spirit for everybody. And in fact, I'm actually going to go to the Wales-Australia game next week.
Oh,
and
exciting.
Yeah, because it's not quite over. Everyone else thinks, oh yeah, it's over and that kind of thing. But actually, we've still got 2 games to go left. We've got Wales, Australia, and England against the Springboks. And so I think in terms of a moment, I mean, I know that they lost very heavily, but I've just got to say, Capuzzo's try against the Springboks yesterday was just outstanding. It was absolutely
in some instances, like, scorelines are just not always reflective of like
of
the game. I know that sounds really like cheesy, and
it's true. It's true,
but like you do hear it. Like, there's so many instances where the score is just not reflective of the actual game in front of you. Like, I would argue as well, the England-New Zealand game, that score is not fully reflective of that game.
No.
I would have also said the same with the bronze medal match between France and Canada in the Women's Rugby World Cup, because
it was much closer
than that. And I think that's a real shame for Canada that they didn't get a score, but we'll come on to that in a wee bit later anyway.
Can I share my favourite moment?
Anja, you've been waiting to give us your Autumn Nation Series highlight. So, Anja, what is your Autumn Nation Series highlight?
Georgia beating Wales.
Yeah, you know, I'm a proud Welshman myself, as you two both know.
Yeah.
And I just think...
Sorry, Morgan, I'm sorry. I am,
you know, personally for me, I think it's absolutely brilliant, because Georgia need to do that. And they need to do that at one stage.
Against world-class teams. Like, you know, it's great. Sorry, I'm really pumped.
But then, like, you know, it's kind of... There was a Alex Payne did a really, really good thing on The Good, the Bad, the Rugby, in which he basically listed off a load of games that had gone topsy-turvy, in the sense that, including, for instance, Italy beating Wales and then losing to, was it Portugal in the summer? Or was it Georgia? I can't remember which one. I think it was Georgia.
I think it was Georgia,
And then, like, you know, Georgia obviously then won against Wales yesterday. Now, granted, it was a changed Wales side. But at the same time, you know, it's like...
It's interesting to see Wales having that I mean, it's one that we all expected, I think, with some familiar faces starting to retire.
Yeah, definitely. I mean,
know, you've got some of those kind of those very well loved faces who, you know, brilliant players, but are just starting to kind of reach that point where they're looking to obviously
down.
not play internationally anymore. Yeah, step down. So
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's kind of Wayne Pivac is almost in an impossible position
Literally,
in
yeah.
that he is very much to do a comparison to the what I call the other sport, football.
Yeah.
He very much has the David Moyes syndrome about him, in the sense
Yeah.
that, you know, David Moyes obviously followed Sir Alex Ferguson at Manchester United, but had so much success, and it doesn't really, you know, for those Manchester United fans
Yeah.
there, it hasn't really worked out in that regard
Yeah.
in recent times. And I think that it's still very much for Wales. I still am questioning where we're going.
Yeah.
You know, you would expect that within the first year of a new coach taking over, but by the time year 3, approaching into year 4,
it's like, where are we going with this?
You would have ought to have thought, okay, we have a clarity in terms of where we're going and what we're doing. Yes, you may pinpoint certain players, and if those players do get injured, then you have to then scramble and then try and do something different. Like France, as a comparison, you know, they've pinpointed everything on probably the, you know, one of the most sexiest players in the world, at being Antoine. So
great adjective there, because he is sexy.
He's the reason I'm aware of this, obviously, that Six Nations trophy was no more.
Do
you guys know this story?
No, what happened? I don't know the story.
He jumped into the River Seine with it. And the trophy went missing for like 2 weeks. And then the French guys were like, yeah, no, it's just here. It's in our trophy cabinet. And they were like, we kind of need that back. And they're like, yeah, it's cool. We'll get it back to you.
I mean, that is a classic thing to do.
That's classic.
But any team, I mean, didn't the FA Cup, when Liverpool won it, and I think it was in the 80s, didn't it get run over by a bus or something?
Yeah, I think I've heard that.
So
there's
definitely
not photo footage of me drinking out the Women's Six Nations trophy. That cannot be confirmed.
That's not anywhere.
No, there's no photographic evidence of that, I imagine.
I've never seen it. I don't know what you're on about even.
There's definitely not a selfie of me.
Definitely not on any of our phones, like it's definitely not, these screenshots. No, but interesting you saying that about Wayne Pivac, because I have a similar feeling, and I might be controversial to everyone out there, that I feel like Eddie Jones has done all he can with the England squad now. I don't see what his vision is anymore. Like, I don't see where he's going. I don't think he knows his team. I can't see what he's
much too clever and wise in that respect. I think personally that, like Simon Middleton, was able to hold his cards very close to his chest for a very long time until the final. And they were starting to implement their game plan in the final, and it was working. Until the red card that Lydia Thompson got.
We'll talk about this.
We will. I think that Eddie Jones is going to do something very similar again, because even though they didn't win the Six Nations in 2019, it was a grand slam for Wales on that occasion. They were able to just peak, but unfortunately one game too soon. Like what he did.
I would argue though, the difference between Eddie Jones and Simon Middleton is that, yes, Mids was keeping his cards very close to his chest, but we also all knew that he had an outstanding deck to pick from. And or that he had selected this outstanding deck. We knew he was holding an entire collection of shiny Pokemon cards. Like, we knew there was nothing bad there. Whereas I feel like some of Eddie's selection choices, and I think that's what's causing a lot of rugby fans to feel very similar to Anja, is there's players in that squad, and I'm a big advocate for, if you can't do better, don't crit. But at the same time, there's players in that squad where it's a bit like, but there's other options. Especially in the Premier.
I'm not a fan of the Owen Farrell Marcus Smith combo. I don't think it's working at the moment. I'm not sure. I could be wrong. But from
it almost feels like there's a few years, like Marcus Smith is so quick. He's like, let's go, let's play fast rugby. Whereas
Owen doesn't want to do
that very structured rugby.
He's like, slow it down.
It's like watching England v Fiji, but on one team. Do you know what I mean?
Yes, I do. I think that, the All Blacks have a very, very similar quandary with whether to play Rigi Mo'unga or Beauden Barrett at 10. Because Mo'unga is a lot more structured in comparison to Bodie, who is just
an outstanding
player. Whereas you do need that dominant force there at number 10, and just to then have that solitary figure being able to then lead the side like that, like Jonathan Sexton for Ireland or Finn Russell for Scotland in the men's.
Joe Sexdog.
Joe Sexdog,
Yeah.
which Squid, I'm sure that Squidditch has used that term. I'm sure.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, sorry.
So I think that there is that, certainly, and I think that, you know, I think that with that, I think that Eddie Jones kept Marcus Smith as an apprentice player for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
So that he could then learn about that sort of thing within
Yeah.
the camps.
Yeah.
And then he was starting this project, and then Owen got injured.
Yeah.
So Marcus then did a load of stuff at number 10.
Yeah.
Whereas when we think about where is Eddie Jones going, with Simon Middleton, he has a 30-game winning streak.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We know where he's going. Yeah. Yeah.
And yeah, so for me as well, I personally, I know this, I'm probably going to get a lot of angry
It's okay.
people.
We're allowed opinions. It's fine.
I personally am not a big Vunipola person.
I'm not either. I'm so with you on this. I'm with you.
I am as well. I don't think that he offered us
There's
a
no
great sense of
impact.
dynamism. Yeah, exactly. I think that personally they should have taken him off and then brought on Jack Willis. I think that they should have kept on Sam Simmons.
That's the thing as well, when you compare like Mako to Jack Willis is everywhere. He's a menace. He's pain.
All over
And
it.
it's like you can't not watch Jack Willis. Whereas I don't feel like Billy has some moments where I'm like, yeah, but also again, you watch it compared to the wider squad, I don't feel they shine.
And apart from, I will say, yeah, I'm in the same way. I completely agree with you, Gemma. I'm not sure Billy is the choice for 8 at the moment. I don't think there was he's dynamic as some players around the pitch. I will say I think Mako had a good game in the New Zealand game when he came on in the second half. I think he's a bit, like, I think, up and down in his performances. But I love that game because it was such a game of two halves. Does that make sense? First half I was like, oh god, how much more can this go wrong? Like I don't see us winning this. I think we'll be lucky to get some points on the board. Second half, okay, first 10 minutes a bit dodgy, but like once it got into that, and then we had that whole like Smith Slade, and I can't remember, you know, that combination. I loved it. Suddenly it was that quick dynamic game, and New Zealand couldn't react to that. I mean, they could. So when we started just playing their game effectively, because it was their game, we started playing their game against them. It was great. Yeah. But the first half looked so structured that we just weren't playing rugby. We were just playing with structure. We weren't playing eyes up rugby, if that makes sense. I think sometimes we're too structured.
Sometimes it does come down to instinct. I remember Jonathan Jiffy Davis saying that in terms of the training that he used to do when he was playing rugby union, because of course he then made the transition to league, he said that at some point in training they'd said, you're not allowed to kick, you're only just allowed to run with the ball. And I think that sometimes England's kicking game can be that wee bit confused as well in that perspective as well. I also think that
apart from when Johnny Hill just hoofs it for the giggles.
Yeah, pretty much. I think was it when he was playing for Exeter against Bristol, I think, at Ashton Gate. I think he did it on that occasion. And I was like, I mean, I've done it in a game.
Kind of worked.
Did you say Tad? How do I say his name? Tad Furlong? Did you see his kick?
Ty Furlong.
Furlong, yeah.
He's a god among props. He is. I
think he might be one of the best props in the world. I'm a big fan of him.
Oh yeah, there's no question about it.
He's in my fantasy 15 every week because he's just so consistently good.
His work great.
What I think I respect the most about him is the fact that if this rumor is true, I will love him even more. He had not touched a gym until he went fully international rugby. So he's a farmer by trade, and literally just built like a barn door by picking stuff up all day, every day.
Just picking up heavy shit and just chucking it about.
Yeah, and then they were like, you're actually an international prop now, you probably should go to the gym. And he was like, all right then. Like, I love that. I so hope that's true.
It would be amazing if we could ever get confirmation of that, to be fair. Although, if we have managed to get away with that at Leinster, when you have the likes of, you know, when he was coming through with the likes of, say, Devon Toner or Sean O'Brien or Robert Carney, for instance, who are, you know, just, they went to the gym like absolute nut cases.
Yeah.
Or Brian O'Driscoll, for instance.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, God,
it's,
yeah.
you know, I'd be absolutely astonished if that were true, to be fair.
I so hope it is. But yeah.
Also, I was going to say also, just a player to mention, another prop, Will Stewart just kind of coming out of nowhere and scoring 2 tries.
Absolutely. Again,
A
Like
lot-
what? Like it was just like a new Will Stewart. I was like, oh, this is
a lot of people
fantastic.
would then think to yourself, okay, Will Stewart,
Yeah.
he's playing at Bath, who are not doing that well in the Gallagher
Yeah.
Premiership at the moment.
Yeah.
You know,
Okay.
Eddie Jones, well, any coach in fairness, but particularly Eddie Jones likes to reward players for their loyalty and in terms of their
Yeah.
hard work and that kind of thing. Hence the question mark about selection of players in certain positions. But, you know, he came good in those moments in that regard. And, you know, he wants an impact off the bench.
Yeah.
He certainly provided it on that.
I think it was good.
did. And again, that's me. I'm like, why would you have other certain choices of prop? And then he comes on and does that. And because Will Stewart for me comes on every time and does something like some audacity. And I really kind of rate that for him.
But some players are better as impact players, not necessarily as starters.
Maybe you want him coming on as an impact player because actually the other team are tired and they're not going to be able to handle him, if that makes sense.
Very true. So to
and also
loop,
sorry.
No, that's all right. Just to loop back a little bit to what we were talking about earlier, obviously the Rugby World Cup 2021, we have all, I think as a nation, been kind of in a little bit more of mourning about that result. Do you know what? I was so chuffed with the New Zealand team. I was so proud of the Black Ferns, but my heart absolutely broke for those England players. And that's why, because I put out a whole video just being like, be kind, because you know that some dude sat on his sofa that, you know, I did an England trial in 1981 is going to start giving his online advice, but actually just, but do you know what as well? The positivity and the love towards the Red Roses has been amazing. Did you watch masses of it, Morgan?
I watched the whole game. I was one of the one I decided to be absolutely crazy. Got up at 4 o'clock in the morning, went across from East London to West London and went to watch it at the Cabbage Patch with the watching party.
We were talking about this,
the lovely likes of Jess Hayden and Ugo Monya and Frankie were there as well.
Frankie.
Which, you know, her letter was just amazing after the game.
Spot on, yeah.
I was actually standing next to a lady who used to be Rennie Holmes's, the Black Ferns' fullback coach for 3 years.
Yeah.
And then she had obviously somehow moved here and then had started doing some work for Jersey, for instance. And like we were both commenting about, you know, how stuff was going on and that kind of thing, but it was in a really nice way, you know, in the sense of like stuff that I would say, oh, this has been done wrong. And I would identify what England have done wrong in that. Yeah. Regard. And she would identify what New Zealand have done wrong as well in that. Yeah. But I think that it's an absolute killer. And I think that, you know, all of them will feel all of the players will then say to themselves, what if I had done this differently? Yeah. Not more so than Lydia Thompson getting the red card. Now,
she was the one my heart broke so hard because she's the loveliest human being on a pitch and she works so hard. And I know that there was no intention behind that card and no one will be more heartbroken about it than her. Like, truly.
This brought up the debate about whether you have a different coloured card, an orange card, whereby it's a red card offence, but when there's no intent of malice in it, you just have the player off for 20 minutes and then you can then put on the replacement.
Yeah. Anja, you've got some thoughts, because I know
I have, because I just think, it was a win for women's rugby. Like we've already said, it was a win for women's rugby. Whoever won that World Cup final was a win for women's rugby. How amazing for Black Ferns to have the comeback of the century from how they performed against England in the last autumn. Yeah, it's like it was a completely different team.
Unbelievable.
So it's great to see those changes and to see that atmosphere of the team be better and to win on home soil in front of all those people. Like, fantastic for women's rugby. Obviously heartbroken for England. I think as someone, like you say, as people who support women's rugby and who played it since like such a young age, it is heartbreaking. But I can't help but think I was so incredibly proud because I can't name any other team at 14 players to take it to 34, 31.
Yeah.
In a World Cup final. Like, I know no other team who could have done that. And like, And I think that just showed such strength and just showed you how tough that squad is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How amazing that squad is, and it is just the beginning for them. It's only just, yes, the result is heartbreaking, but it is just the beginning. I can't wait to see what they're going to do, and it's only 3 years away now.
Exactly, it's 3 years away, and when you think that it was, what was it? It was Lucy Packer who came in for Infante. It was what, her third start or something?
Amazing.
She did absolutely incredible. I think, for instance, Ben Spencer, when he came on as a replacement scrum half for England in the World Cup final for the men's in 2019, I think that was one of his, early games as well in an England shirt, and he's then been no more since then. But from an England perspective, but yeah, it's honestly, I think I actually also, I know this is going to be a wee bit of a name drop, but I've also known Nick Mullins for a long old while now. And actually, when I used to work at Bath Rugby as a barman, I first got in touch with him, and we've been corresponding since then. And I texted Nick because I did it in 2019, and I did it a couple of weeks back to wish him luck for commentating the final, because it's a big pressure moment for those guys as well, in that perspective as well. And we then sent a few texts back, and I then said to him, best World Cup final ever? I think so. I genuinely can't think, apart from where New Zealand against France in 2007, when it was just that 1 point difference. And the conspiracy theorist about whether the kick went over, I just think is hilarious from Stephen Dodd. The manner of that World Cup final, the way that the Black Ferns just grew into the game, and we had so much adoration for everyone involved in that regard. However, for pure heart, pure spirit, and for the enjoyment of the game, you can't look any further than
I'd like to ask you both a brief question. So I'll start off with you, Morgan. Who was your World Cup wild card, the team you kind of maybe hadn't seen as much prior to this Rugby World Cup, or maybe didn't expect very much from, and they wowed you actually during the World Cup?
This is tough.
There's really tricky one, actually.
There's two I'd go for, but I'll let you. Morgan.
I think I've got two as well, and whether they're the same,
I'll say the one that isn't that you don't say. Okay.
Okay.
We're probably on the same lines.
The two that I've got, one is Fiji.
Yeah, I'll go for the other one then.
Depends on what your other one is, in fairness.
No, I'm fully with you. The Fijiana are absolutely so impressive, and they were a true reflection, exactly like you were saying earlier, where the score isn't always reflective of the game. That first half, they played fast heads-up rugby, and it worked.
And it shook England, and it was so nice to see. And not because I'm not an English supporter, I support England, but it was nice to see England get rattled, because we hadn't been rattled in quite a significant amount of time. So
absolutely. Great answer. And who was your other one? I'm curious.
Yes.
Australia.
Oh, that was not my other one. That was my other. I'm quite
I think that genuinely, if they kept their sevens players, I cannot remember her name for the life of me.
Charlotte
the
Caslick?
inside centre.
Oh, I don't know. Oh yes, the Levi Madeline.
Laurie Kramer,
Levi,
Exeter.
That's the fullback. The inside centre is I think it's something Levi.
Something along those lines. She was utterly brilliant. And if you had what I've always wanted for after a World Cup final is for the World Cup winning team to then play against a barbarian side of players that weren't involved in the semi-finals. She would either be, at 10 or at 12, depending on what, the situation was. But I think that Australia were brilliant. They rattled the Black Ferns, in the very first game, 19-0. It takes a very, very special team to come back from 19-0 to then eventually take over and almost do a blitz job on them, which they eventually did. But I think
it's really interesting that, again, it's that real heads-up style of rugby, that real fast-paced style of rugby that does seem to come very much in the kind of Southern Pacific teams, those, you know, Southern Hemisphere Pacific teams, they look that faster pace of ball, and it's very much a rugby league kind of style of play, really. And you can see that that is successful against those highly structured, particularly the kind of Northern Hemisphere teams that are used to, like, we do a pod and then we do this and then we do that. They're used to so much structure. You see these teams, they come in that look for a loose structure, and I think train maybe in a less structured way, in the sense that they know what they're doing, but they don't train to a specific set of, this is what we're going to do. And I think that gives them such a great kind of reactive style of rugby.
Absolutely.
What was your second choice, Anja?
Yeah, Anja, who was your...
I'm gonna try and pick two others now, because you've taken one of them. So Fiji was obviously going to be like one of mine. I think undeniably, you can't argue with that. I'm going to say one, then can I give a few honourable mentions? Is that okay? So I'm going to say, like, obviously, I actually think Canada, because I wouldn't have put them in the semis. I wouldn't, in the nicest way. I think I hadn't seen enough of them. I thought they played some outstanding rugby, and considering none of them are professional, like, players, then none of them were contracted to get to the semi-final and be playing that rugby. And let's be honest, they didn't make it easy for us. We didn't walk away with the win, did we? You know, I think great, and I can't wait to see what they get to achieve when they do get given contracts, because I think they will be an unstoppable force.
Insane, yeah.
Like Sophie Jaguda, like, legend. You know, I think they're all great.
I loved that her mum and dad, also both ex-Canada captains, were there watching her as well.
Imagine how proud you'd be.
In the camper van. That was just awesome.
Yeah.
I think Canada scored the same amount of points as Fiji did against England, which was the most that anyone had scored against England up to the final.
I think crash balls like Tutosi, who play England's game against England, and England don't. I think
they're playing them. A lot of those players have played in the Prem 15s. They know how those England players play. Like, so it's good. It was nice to see. Yeah. And then a few honourable mentions. I'm going to. I know they didn't get, actually, two teams I don't think got past the pool stages, but I still enjoyed watching them play. I really felt for Scotland, because I thought they played some incredible rugby. I thought they played some incredible rugby, and I think they were just really unfortunate in their results. I think I really enjoyed watching their style of play. And I know they're contracted, but they haven't been contracted for a long period of time. So I think give them a bit more time to develop and see what happens there. I think that's really exciting. Secondly, I thought Italy looked really strong. I think the Women's Six Nations this year is going to be a completely different completely different event. I think that would be mine.
That's the first time that an Italian side has ever reached the quarterfinals for the men's and women's tournaments.
Yeah,
they were just brilliant. And as quoting again Squidditch Rugby, Wales were jammy bastards against that Scotland side. Yeah. And I was just like, how? Genuinely how? Yeah. Because Scotland were the last team to qualify out of, you know, all of the 12th and last team, and they ran Wales so close. Yeah. It was unbelievable.
Exactly.
So my two kind of, so I mean, my honourable mention is always going to be Scotland. I think the one thing Australia do need to look at is they were the most carded team for high tackles.
Oh, absolutely.
And it was so prevalent in their gameplay. Yeah. It was really disappointing that, like, you know, you've got players like Rachel Malcolm getting absolutely clattered.
Yeah.
And
did you see Caitlin's face? Was that reason number 9? And her, like, black eye, and then the other one was like almost swollen shut. And you're like, and Jesus Christ! Like,
so many tackles in those games that I wasn't very comfortable with. So Scotland are my honourable mention. And I think that, again, Fiji get a little bit of an honourable mention because they were just wild. Canada were my team, just like Anja. I didn't expect them to maybe place where they did.
Yeah.
I've seen, obviously, a few of their players are local to me.
Yeah.
So over at Sandy Park, like Dalika Menin, Emily Tatasi. But I hadn't expected quite the result from them that we got. So really impressed to see it.
I'd also like to say that I think it really shows, like, this whole cover show the importance of TMO and how vital it is to the game. And especially, I think we saw lots of players getting cited after games this year. which is like not really being the case in a lot of international women's rugby. And it's good. It is like, okay, sucks about the red card, but it is good for player safety. Like Portia Woodman was out cold. She had a full on like chronic arm, which means it's like bad. And so yeah, as much as like for England fans, it was sad, it was the best thing for player safety. So I think it's good that would be, and it was good. I know that Australia deserved more cards, I think, for that game, but it was good they got cards, you know, like it was good those things were reviewed. Perfect, you know. That's what
I'd argue Australia deserved a few more cards in a few more games from what I saw. I'm not one of those people, I don't know how you guys feel. I don't feel like I'm overly anal about tackle height, but also at the same time, when you look at the size of some of these players as well, for example, in my games, I'm like, if you high tackle me, that's almost an achievement. Like, I'm not mad at it. That's pretty much an achievement. And I don't know how you feel about it, Morgan, as well, but like, you know,
it's hard to high tackle me.
I think if you set as a ref, when they set the precedent of this is not acceptable, it sticks a bit better.
Yeah, it does, definitely. And I think that, you know, players are still, I think, learning to adapt to the tackle laws in that regard, even though we've had them for quite a long time and we know what it is. But sometimes we've got to remember this is international rugby, in which it is so fast paced. Sometimes it is genuinely not out of malice. Now, there are other times in which it is clearly malice. And we saw quite a few incidences in the Autumn Nation series this weekend. Like, for instance, Marcos Kremer, you know, he's an outstanding player. But what he did was a Jamie Ritchie, I think, in the Scotland game, was madness, quite frankly. You know, you don't do that. I could think that Peter Amani did something very similar against Thomas Francis in the Ireland Wales game in 2021. But like, I think that, you know, the players know that, and the coaches know that as well. But so, for instance, one thing that I kept a very close eye on actually was, in comparison to last year, Owen Farrell's tackle technique.
It's better.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, it would either be a chest high with the ball or it would be lower. You know, it takes good coaching in order to establish that.
I was having a quick conversation with Sam, love it. You know, we all know her on about like the whole carding for high tackles. And for example, if you take Lydia Thompson's head-on-head contact, I know then that there was a New Zealand player who then got a yellow because it was like shoulder head and then she like slipped up. But in my opinion, I don't know how you guys feel about this, a malicious shoulder to the head can be just as bad, if not worse, than a head-on-head. And so like, and I know it's difficult. I know sometimes you can't control it, but I do think sometimes they're, you know, like a yellow card. I've seen some very bad yellow card, like I mean, some very bad shoulder on head contacts. That yellow card that you think, I think that should probably be a red, even if they're on my team. You know, I mean, I'm like, that's still, I think that's still dangerous. Like you can't tell me that's not just as dangerous as you know. And I think it's just there's this whole grey area at the moment around it and what is. That's what the orange card I think maybe is more of a.
And it's about that sense of consistency.
Now
it is down to, like, it is very much down to interpretation and the subjectivity of it as well. Now sometimes I do think to myself, I sometimes am dumbstruck with sometimes how a commentary team would then look at the assessment of the criteria, and the TMO and the referee would come to a completely different conclusion reviewing the same evidence. So I think that's what fans want, is consistency. Now it's just trying to find that very fine balance of it all the time.
Exactly.
But you do need it, because otherwise you're not going to be able to bring fans on board, because, you know, new fans to rugby might find it slightly too complicated with the slight nuances, especially surrounding the tackle technique.
Like, for example, going to that Australia game, there was a couple of yellows given for shoulder to head contacts, and I would say a lot of those were malicious. Like, I don't think a lot of those they weren't trying to avoid it. You could see the intent that they were going in for that, and I think that should be a red. That's just me.
Yellow when it's static.
Yeah.
You know, when the players literally just like that stood
Yeah.
up, kind of thing,
Yeah.
and it's like that.
Yeah.
With that sort of thing, I agree with you, Anja. It should be.
Yeah.
I'm fully with you. I posted one on my TikToks. It was given a yellow, but I was like, it's extremely borderline.
Yeah.
And, yeah, but it's the shoulder into the head, and I'm like, yeah, but that still takes.
It's mitigation.
effort.
Yeah, it's like it's mitigation because it's shoulder into the head, and that's not head on. And you're like,
I also
Yeah,
feel 99% of people will end up, you know, when you hit your head into someone's head and
Yeah.
it hurts. You hit your
Yeah.
shoulder into someone's head, it doesn't hurt quite as much. So most people will withdraw a bit of force if they realise they're going in with their head rather than what they would do with their shoulder. So I would argue a shoulder to the head, like Anja said earlier, is potentially even more dangerous and more problematic. And I actually think it shows a worse intention.
I also think you can totally tell by how the player reacts afterwards. You can see Lydia Thompson afterwards, really apologetic for Woodman. It's like, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to do it.
Yeah.
Some of those Australian players are like, yeah, I'm just gonna carry on playing. Yeah, like I feel terrible when I high tackle someone. You know what I mean? Like I don't ever intentionally do it unless someone's being a bit mouthy to me. Unless I got told to piss off, you slag, in a game against one of Gemma's teammates.
I'd really like it to know that it wasn't me that said that. I was in the
wasn't
A&E
Gemma.
with my broken nose at this point.
Jemma
So.
was in hospital broken nose, but I laughed because it was quite an original insult. I was like, yeah, quite a good one, yeah, thanks. But anyway, we don't get into those kind of tussles.
So moving onwards again, we've got so much to cover tonight. Apologies, it is a whirlwind of a 2 props 1 pod tonight. Premier 15s is back.
Woo!
Great to see.
Obviously it's a very different Premier 15s this season. Wasps have now lost a lot of players, including key players such as Lena Corson and Bryony Cleal,
Ellie Boatman, loads, Claudia McDonald.
Yeah.
Loads. Yeah.
Lots
Oh,
of key.
Worcester in it still.
Worcester, so I saw Harlequins v Worcester today, and Worcester beat Harlequins, and it was a great game. It was like 28-14. Fantastic game rugby. But again, both teams, it was a great, again, not a reflection of how close the game was. It was a close game. Yeah.
I'd be really interested to see, because the Wasps team that I saw on the team sheet yesterday essentially looked like a B team.
Did you see the scoreline?
Team? Yeah, that's the thing. And it was up against Bristol, obviously 60-0 at the end, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it's really interesting though that DMP, I know they lost, but that still sounded like 31-12. That's like quite considering some of the DMP scorelines last season. That's pretty impressive. So I think we're going to see a lot more. I think we're going to see a lot more competition at the top of the table. So I think we're going to see a lot more teams competing for that. I don't think it's like a couple of seasons ago, it would have always been Saracens versus someone in the Premier 15's final. And you could have written that quite obviously. And I think now we're going to see, with some great signings and new teams like Gloucester Hartbury, I think we're going to see a little that thing change. That thing changing. Bristol Bears again.
Emma Singh was sensational for Gloucester Hartbury yesterday. Obviously, she's come over from Harlequins. Emma Singh was just sensational.
She's going to be fantastic. But I think then again we're going to see I think we're going to have DMP, Wasps, some other teams battling out in those bottom positions to stay up, because I think we also forget that the league opens again for promotion and relegation next season or the end of the season, I believe. So it'll be interesting. Very interesting.
So Morgan, I'm really keen to know who are your 3 players kind of to watch in the Prem 15.
Ooh, good question.
Or who are the 3 that really excite you to watch? Maybe
Jemma with all the hard-hitting questions. That's what
I
am.
am.
No.
She's the question.
It's really hard.
Next stop, Panorama.
I think obviously you've got players coming back
That's
from
the
the World
question.
Cup who are then just going to be wanting to do stuff. One of my answers is not actually playing at the moment, but I would love to have seen her in the Elliott Premier 15s, Jazz Joyce.
Yeah.
Because she's now going to hopefully,
GB7s.
GB7s, exactly.
Yeah.
So then qualify for the Olympics.
Yeah.
I think the reaction of Sarah Hunter, I think, will be very, very interesting. She is a stalwart leader, and I think that it does take a lot of character to then come back and go, right, clean slate, new
Yeah.
start. Here we go. This is what we want to do.
Also, it'd be interesting to see whether she stays around for the next World Cup, if she's gonna try and go again. It'll be interesting to see. I'll be really, yeah, I'm with you on that one. I think that's
I'd
good.
love her to. I'd love her
Yeah.
to.
I think she's got it in her. 3 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
Easy.
Hopefully, if she's injury free and
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
That's
definitely.
what we all wish. Everyone's healthy and well. Anyway,
With
sorry,
it-
Margaret.
yeah. So who's your kind of third person that kind of really excites you in the Premier 15?
Eleanor Snowsill.
Ooh, nice
Ah,
one.
So she has had a lot of coaching from Stephen Myler, and in that very, very short period of time, her kicking game has just gone
Yeah.
through the roof. So I think that Bristol, if they can capitalise on that, then that
Yeah.
would be something.
I mean, Bristol are so smart in their setup with them,
Yeah.
with both the men's and the women's team.
They've
But like,
roared. Yeah.
they've got a front row that can sprint.
Yeah.
They've got second rows like Abby Ward who find someone who can compete better
Yeah.
like that. Like
She can
she's-
read a line out better than Abby Ward. No one.
and like they just sign like they've
Yeah.
had Jack Joyce on the books. Obviously, they've got half the Wales international team, Sue on Lily Crap. Just
Amber
Wales.
Reid. Yeah. Amber
Lisa
Reid.
Butchers.
Alicia Butchers. Who's
They-
just unfortunately having an ACL done, isn't she? She
Yeah.
unfortunately did an ACL.
Yeah, and
But
it's
she'll
going to
be
be
back in it. So.
a 9-month job apparently.
Anja, who are you excited to see then?
Oh!
What a time to
Oh,
breathe.
well, I'll put the glasses on and take impact. I'm very excited. We talk about Gloucester Hartbury. Someone who didn't make the World Cup squad, but Sarah Beckett, who was signed for Gloucester Hartbury. Very
Yeah,
interested to see how she does. I think
that was a
think
big move for her.
that was a big move, and I'd like to see her make that comeback, and I'd like to see her get selected for the next World Cup because I think she's a great player. Who else? Who else? Oh, this is a good question. I'd like to see where Abby Dow's gonna go. Is she gonna stick it out at Wasps? Is she gonna move? That would be a big move.
I think they're going
Oh,
somewhere.
I've got one. I found the one that I was thinking of. Claudia McDonald. I can't wait to watch her in the Premier 15s. And she's obviously signed for Chiefs. I don't know whether she's going to be playing 9 or wing. I'd love to see her some more on a wing because I just think she thrived in that in the World Cup. So yeah, I'm really excited about her. I think she's a really exciting player.
I would imagine she'd be a little bit more on the wing at Chiefs because Chiefs didn't really have as much of a back line last season. So obviously they've just signed Jodie Owsley as well from Salesham. So I'd love to see, for example, Jodie at 14, Claudia at 11. I arrived at Exeter actually a few weeks ago for a little while ago now for a pre-season fixture, and Claudia McDonald was doing sprints when I got there, and I was like, that is faster than I will ever be. So yeah, I'm excited to see her kind of on my home turf as well. I like to ask these kind of questions because it lets me understand your thinking and the players that you watch. So it's I'm really interested.
I'd also just like to just another Oliver mentioned, I'd like to see what Rosie Gallagher does. I think she's a really good and upcoming player. I think she has a lot of potential. I think she's still at Quins. And yeah, I'm excited about seeing her too. So yeah, Jemma, who would you what?
She's also a nice human being.
Lovely human, so smiley.
So
just
smiley.
Lovely. Jemma, who would your 3 be?
I mean, I know I bring her up into pretty much every other conversation, but
Kate Zachary? Oh, I was going to say Kate Zachary. I was wrong.
Captain Kate, I kind of know what I'm going to see with her in a good way.
Yeah.
I know I'm excited to the season, but she's not one of my
You do love Simi Pam.
Whereas Simi Pam has been developing both sprinting and running into people like a freight train, which I respect as a tactic. I just love that combination of I will hit you, but it will be at like 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And then I might even just step you as well, which is like you're in a one shirt. We don't expect that.
Yeah.
She's setting the bar extremely high for props.
Yeah.
So Simi always. I was gonna say, I'm excited to see more of Mo Hunt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously,
like Sarah Beckett.
Selected for the World Cup.
Yeah.
Not my decision making, but I'm excited to see what she now does and brings out the fire this season. I think I'm also really excited to see, who else am I excited to see? There's so many people.
There are.
There's so many.
There's talent. There's so much talent, man.
Oh, that's the thing. The talent is getting. It's just such immense talent. I'm probably excited to see. Do you know what? I'm excited to see what Bryony Cleal does this season, because
she was great today. Scored 2 tries.
She's had some absolute stormers. She did really well in a lot of the World Cup warm-up fixtures.
Yeah.
And so obviously, unfortunately, not selected.
Yeah.
Which would be, I can't imagine like how conflicting it must be to have your twin selected and not you. Like, that takes a hell of a human to just throw your own feelings and ego about it into a box and just go, do you know what, I'm here for you. Like, that must take a hell of a lot. So I'm really excited to see what she pulls out this season. She
scored both their tries today. She scored both their tries at Queen's today. She played really well. Came on the second half and scored both their tries, I think. I'm correct. So
I'm on the money with that one then, maybe.
He was great. Good signing.
Can I just get with one more honourable mention? Again, another pro player, Sonia Cabella.
Oh, yes. Oh, that's another great one.
So I think that she has the great potential to be the starting number 7 in the World Cup for England in 3 years' time.
Oh, I think as much as I love, and I do love Marley Packer. Yeah, it's nice to see her have some competition. Like, do you know who also I think was which I didn't went below the radar for me, but I think also I love to watch, and she's up actually. She's up for an award. Alex Matthews. I thought she was fantastic in every game of the World Cup that she played. I think stand-up player.
She's one of those under-highlighted heroes,
and she's so kind. Yeah, she just lovely person.
You see her smashing it on the pitch, and you're like, oh yeah, of course, like of course, Alex Matthews.
Of course, she's there, and her work rate is just
that jumps to your mouth straight away.
Her work rate. If you watch her around the park, she's just everywhere all the time, and I think massive respect to her. So glad that she's been recognised for that. Sorry,
No, Morgan, you were telling us before the show you had a really interesting point of discussion. Would you like to introduce that?
Yeah, so I met up for a friend for some dinner the other week, and as one of things in terms of looking at the world, we said, oh, we'd love to win the lottery. Yeah, of course we'd love to win the lottery. And so who wouldn't? Exactly. She went into what she wanted to do, and she then asked me. And I said, without a blink of an eye, I said, I would fully fund a women's British and Irish Lions team to New Zealand.
Strong.
Things to absolutely love. And I mean, obviously there is a committee about this that is in motion currently. We've got members like Shauna Brown on the panel.
Yeah.
What kind of things would you bring to your women's Lions? So like what kind of, I don't know, what's your process?
It would be difficult. I mean, if you're basing it on, who are you selecting? Are you going to do it for the home nations, or you have British Lions? You're gonna have to cap certain players from certain. Like, for example, I know that England at the moment are the reigning forces out of all the British territories, but you can't have a whole England team. You know, you can't
have a
whole England team.
Yeah, so I think that's what my question boils down to: is what's your criteria? How are you selecting, and kind of what, you don't have to give me a full 15, but what kind of key faces would we see?
So personally, I think something that was actually questioned about the men's Lions tour last time around.
Yeah.
I personally think that you need to have a coach from each of the countries.
Yeah.
Because you then get that fair say in terms of that perspective. Yeah. For me, there's no question. It's Simon Middleton.
It's got to be Simon Middleton.
It has to be Simon. And I think that, from that perspective, there have to be certain key players there.
Yeah.
I know this may be controversial in that regard, but sometimes you have to think about, you've just got to pick the best back row
player,
rather than or the best team or the best players and that kind of thing, rather than they will be able to work in good combinations in one another in that perspective. So someone like Sarah Hunter could miss out on the British and Irish Lions tour. Whereas everyone will say it would be absolute madness if you left out Emily Scarrett, for instance. So I think that there would certainly be some key players there. I think Scarrett is one, absolutely one of them.
Yeah.
I think Jazz Joyce is another. I think, she was the only non-English player for Team GB when they won.
Yeah.
Their silver medal in the Olympics a while ago. She was the only non-English person there.
Yeah.
And I think that there should have been some more representation there, personally.
Absolutely.
So I think that there has to be that certain criteria. You can't put it down to numbers specifically, i.e. you can't have, you've got to have at least 3 Scottish, 3 Irish and 4 and 4.
No, I think you've got to send the best team. You've got to send the best team, haven't you?
Exactly. That's what you have to do. And you have to have the best from each of the countries, for instance. So, like, for instance,
you also want those people that can inspire and motivate. So, like, for me, Rachel Malcolm would be up there because she inspires. Nick Friday probably as well, because she motivates people and she really leads that Ireland team really well.
It's a bit like you want an Alan Wynne-Jones. Do you know what I mean? Someone who's got the experience, someone who's going to rally the troops. Like, I listen sometimes his speeches he gives, you're like, oh yeah, I'm pumped and I'm just watching.
I was going to say
Fridays are crazy.
Yeah. I think it would be like, I would hate to be Simon Middleton making those choices if this happens. Like, I would hate to have to choose who plays where, because I think there was huge. The great thing about women's rugby right now is everyone is amazing. Everyone is great players. It would be impossible. I mean, I'd hate to have the job of trying to pick a British Lions team, because I think you could put so many combinations in so many different places, and I think some people would be absolutely heartbroken, obviously. I think Sarah Byrne's got to be in there.
Yeah.
As a prop, I think Sarah Byrne has to be in there. Again, if you're doing at this current moment, I think I would pick Marley Packer, because I think a great leader on the pitch. I think she would rile people up, like, that she pumps you up
on and off as well.
On and off the pitch, yeah.
Because you need those, because it's a tour. Because we have to remember, it's a tour. It wouldn't just be a case that they would, because it's not going to be this. I don't think it would necessarily be the same as the men's. The men's very traditionally New Zealand, South Africa, Australia. I don't think it would necessarily be like that for the women's. I think that they would tour Canada and Australia as the other 2 teams.
That'd be good, I like that.
Because South Africa are
not developed enough at the moment.
They're not developed enough. Like, some of them, it was the very first time that they've been out of South Africa when they went to the
That's what I was going to say is, the most capped South African player in the Rugby World Cup had 4 caps, I believe.
I think that, and this is the thing, like, if you're going to do a British and Irish Lions tour, you've got to do it against a team that is going to give you a good competition. And right now, that could only be probably one of 3 or 4 teams. I'd say New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and France. The people who are in the semi-finals is who I'd go for. Obviously, you can't really do. I think France is obviously too close. I think I'd love to see it against New Zealand, though. I would. I'd love to see I'd love to see that. Do you know who else I really liked in the World Cup? Who I think is that person who's on the pitch all the time, but you don't necessarily notice everything they're doing. Like Amy Clegane.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Scored so many tries in this World Cup. I think she'd be on the tour.
First World Cup hat trick since '87 or something like that in a World Cup final. I know, again, another great stat from Scotland. She was absolutely brilliant. I think another one, Hannah Jones. Centre and captain of Wales. I think that she was utterly brilliant in this tournament, and she was able to punch up the defences brilliantly. So I think that, having a combination of her as well as Skaz, and then you have someone, and then you have players like, is it Rowlands?
Rona Lloyd. I'd really like to see Rona Lloyd. Oh yeah, Helena Rowland. I'd like to see.
Yeah,
I think Rona Lloyd is something special as well. Rona Lloyd, I think, is something special. I'd love to have Rona Lloyd just as a Scot. Because Mario will be very happy if we mention one Scot in this episode. So, like, Rona Lloyd would be
has to be.
Helen, you saying Helena Rowland?
Helena Rowland, definitely, for sure.
Yeah, and I just think that, I just think, why do we need to have a committee? Just make it happen.
I think, yeah.
Is my, because there's a great sense of frustration, I think, across many fans that would say,
Yeah.
why hasn't it been done before? We've had nearly 100, well, we have now had 130 years of the British and Irish Lions,
Yeah.
and there's no women's side. And I just
So-
think that's utterly crazy.
Yeah.
I have a bit of a controversial opinion about the British and Irish Lions.
Yeah.
I think we should have a women's British and Irish Lions, but I don't think we're ready for it yet. In the sense that we've still got a Premiership that has part funded and part professional and players playing for. We've still got international teams that are not contracted, like Ireland that didn't even make it to the World Cup.
Yeah.
We've got issues at both national and international level. So personally, I think we should be putting the investing into fixing those issues and into, rather before we put on an Irish Lions. And I think that should be the kind of markers of success to be able to kind of back up a Lions. At the moment, I think putting in a Lions would help nudge those things in a way. But I also think we're kind of like, I worry that it will overshadow the problems that we've got beneath it, if that makes sense.
Is it
I get what you're saying. Yeah,
running before you can walk?
Yeah.
It's more just I worry that, because especially with the marketing and the commercial around women's, like there will be an absolute media circus, you know, the first ever women's British and Irish Lions, but that will then go, and there's also Premiership players not being paid. There's also
but can I just, I fully agree with you. Then the World Cup shouldn't happen either. Do you know what I mean? Because then Canada, not professional, still in the semi-final. So I kind of completely get what you're saying in terms of, like, if we want to make it a professional thing where it's on the same level as the men's, we do need that infrastructure. But then I think we need to be doing it at the World Cup. And at the Six Nations. Yeah, you know, like I think, and we can't even say that it's, you know, like with Canada doing it, it's not okay that they're not contracted, but they did a brilliant job when they're not contracted to get that far in the competition. So I completely understand what you're saying. It's just it's just difficult, isn't it? It's difficult because how long is that going to take? You know, like realistically, it could be like another. Shockingly, it could probably be another 10 years. You know what I mean? Before every country in the World Cup is fully professional. At least like countries like you know, South Africa and things like that. How long do we know?
The flip side is that it could potentially help nudge those countries.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that was my thing, was like, I worried that the overshadow, and like I said, mainly the media circus around a women's Lions would then my worry is that then it would be like, there's people playing in the Prem that aren't professional. But you've got a Lions, and especially I think in women's rugby we're taught to be very grateful for every success that we get, and that is great, and as you know, we should celebrate progress. But I also think it's the focus points.
And also, and another point to add on to that, imagine then if a non-professional team won the British Irish Lions tour, and then that would be give them fucking contracts. Give them contracts. Do you know what I mean? Like, clearly they're a world-class team. Like, it would be the ultimate statement. But I can understand wanting to do that before you get to that point, if that makes sense.
What were you going to say, Morgan?
A little twist on that about having non-contracts and that kind of thing. I know they had to do it contractually in 2013 because of the sponsors of HSBC, and they said that you needed to play a game in Hong Kong. And they just happened to play against the Barbarians. I think that if you started a tour in which you then went to a neutral location in which it will attract rugby fans for the British and Irish Lions women's team to start off, you play a game in France in which you then have French, Canadian, South African, Fijian players, maybe one or two players that weren't selected over the Lions in that respect. Thinking Elliot Daly was a Barbarian in 2013, and then he's been on the two subsequent Lions tours after that. I think that if you did that, then obviously you then have the Super Rugby Aotearoa equivalent of New Zealand, in which you have the five women's teams there. That's 7. You then have 3 tests against the Black Ferns.
It'd be
And
good. It'd be
I
good.
would, that's a 10-game tour.
Yeah.
That's a 10-game tour right there. And I would stipulate this. If it were to get to a scenario in which it was the same with the All Blacks and the British and
Yeah.
Irish Lions drawing at the end of it, you go to Golden Point.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that you then get a defined winner, because what you don't want is you
It's a
don't
draw.
want it to just be, oh, this is
Yeah.
tough, you know, that sort of thing. We don't want to recreate.
Yeah.
Obviously, the 2017 men's tour would just fell shy of them matching the 1971 Lions tour down to New Zealand. But at the same time, I think that fans wanted that one last charge in that respect. And I think that that would be a stipulation of mine.
I think we also have to consider, as much as we're talking about like the British Lions being professional, you have to consider the country we're going to would have to have enough club infrastructure to support 4 or 5 club games before the test matches against the country. You couldn't do it in South Africa right now, and you couldn't do it. I mean, you could probably do it in France, New Zealand,
and that's why I said
sure.
Those teams that I mentioned before, being
Yeah.
the United States, Australia, and New Zealand, and probably Canada as well. Although Canada, I think, have only got 1 or 2 teams, and then they are.
I don't know if they have the infrastructure to be able to do the whole.
Yeah, so I think,
which again comes back to then maybe it needs to be professional before we get to that.
Well, yeah, definitely.
I feel like it's one of those infinite loops.
Yeah. One thing is like a catch-22, isn't it? Like you kind of keep going around, and it comes back to like a different issue each time. But I think the premise is interesting, and I also think, I know they've already done it once, but I'd like to see more female bars games. I know I love to see that. I watched one. I've watched a couple now. Great games of rugby, love them. I think it'd be nice to see more.
Yeah, loved it.
So anyway.
Well, what a show, guys.
Also Jemma, just before we go, I have received a message from the Rugby Connection podcast chat, which would just like us to quickly announce our nominations for the Rugby Connection podcast Bold Rugby Awards. We're doing our own, Morgan.
Nice.
You're not necessarily, we just have to basically say what our choices were.
Although I would be interested to hear yours afterwards as well.
So if we do ours, and then you can have a shot. And also just to mention that we can't repeat answers that have already been said. So some of my choices wouldn't be my first choice, if that makes sense. So I've gone male player of the year is, I can never say his first name. I'm gonna put so, because I thought he's had a stellar season. You can't really fault him. Women's player of the year, I've gone Alex Matthews. Coach, Simon Middleton. My try would have been the Claudia McDonald Abby Dow try, but Murray already took that. So I've gone for the Emily Chancellor try from the Australia-England game in the quarters.
Anja, can you remind me who I put? Because I've totally blanked on who I put.
Jemma put, because you had to change some of yours, didn't you? So Jemma put male player of the year, Michael Hooper. Women's player of the year, Abby Dow. Coach of the year, Gregor Townsend. And your try would be Rona Lloyd try versus Wales in the Women's Six Nations.
Fluky as hell, that try.
But
I also wanted the Abby Dow one, but I think like for a try that can literally never be reproduced, like it was a fluky 4G try, and I kind of love it for that.
I love that.
So I chose Michael Hooper as my man of the year because not only did he captain Australia really brilliantly this summer, led them really well, but also I respect the way he's been openly talking about his mental health, and the fact that he also chose to take a step back from the captaincy. I think that sets such a brilliant example, and I always think if you're going for like a player of the year or something award, that person, they've got to be someone who's rugby on and off the pitch.
Yeah, absolutely.
So Morgan, who would be your rugby player of the year?
It might be an obvious one. Ardie Savea of New Zealand.
Yeah. I'm going for that in our group chat. That's a good choice.
He's just an awesome player. He's a gnarly forward, but he's a brilliant carrier. He could do so much stealing. he's so dynamic around the pitch. I
Yeah.
just think he's been
His ability
brilliant.
to turn over a ball in that England game is just like second to none. Like once he's in there,
Yeah,
he'll not keep it for you.
yeah.
Brilliant choice.
Women's player? Oh yes, yeah.
Stacey Fleur.
Oh, good one. She's so good. Shame she got injured in the final. I was sad to see that.
Yes,
But
yeah.
yeah.
And to be honest, I have a wee crush on her. I just think she's absolutely
Oh,
amazing.
Stacey
You
Fleur,
know.
if you're watching,
Yeah.
slide
You
into
know where Morgan is.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm not just blushing because I'm on the room's really hot.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Good one.
We've already outed Harvey for his massive crush on Scats.
So it's fine. You're the next one. And coach of the year.
Michael Checker.
Oh yeah. Like
You know, he got 2 very historic wins for Argentina against New Zealand and England. You know, that's no mean feat, I think. And he's been able to transform Argentina into a really, really good side, I think.
I really like that.
Yeah, nice choice. Like that one. And try of the year.
Lewis Rees-Zammit against South Africa.
Yes. I was gonna say that. I was one of my words. Yeah, great try. Oh, Jammy, that's good.
Reminding me of that try. That is beautiful.
That was a. Also, I'd like to say, and another one I would have liked to put, but someone already took it, was Kaputso's try against Wales in the last like 2 seconds of the game to beat Wales.
No, it was beautiful. And if you had to ask me for a defining moment of this year thus far,
it'd be
interesting.
Well, that isn't necessarily World Cup related or international related. Is just the domestic scene. Freddie Burns' drop goal.
Oh
yes. So I mean, there's so many amazing moves.
Yeah.
How do we pick just the ones?
I know. Unbelievable.
Morgan, thank you
so
much for joining us today. You've been absolutely amazing. What a first guest to have. Is there anything you wanted to shout out, or anyone you want to shout out while you're here?
And your social media things that people can follow.
Yeah. So I want to develop stuff so that I can then launch some stuff properly for the next season when it comes around anyway. So I want to do that. I want to try and get some more commentary stuff in the line, but I think that it's something that, because like you, Jemma, you've started a new job. I'm just about to start a new job myself. I'm just going to try and unpackage that first. But if people want to get in touch with me on Instagram, it's @moreruggers. It is the same on Twitter, but who knows what's going to happen with Twitter at the moment anyway.
Down.
Well, literally. But I think, in that respect, sometimes you need to do a redemption in rugby terms. I just happened to go on Pointless once, and the very first question that I got asked was teams who have participated in the men's World Cup final in 2019.
Amazing.
I just happened to then say Uruguay, and it got the lowest amount of points. My friend that was with me unfortunately panicked and said England, and got us knocked out because everyone else had got correct answers. They were all lower. So it's all about redeeming Swan image in that respect. But it has been an enormous pleasure, and thank you so much, you two, for allowing us,
we love having you.
Rather wavy-haired not ex, but like stuttering rugby commentator. Let's put it in that.
No, not at all. It's been amazing. Look, thank you guys so much for watching. My name's Jemma, the Prop Life.
And I'm Anja, the Chatty Prop.
And this was 3 Props, 1 Pod.